This idea that you could find love and intimacy or adventure through casual sex.
I am very happily married, and I'm so happy that I'm not in the dating market anymore because it's brutal out there.
Shekhar, you've never made a rom-com. So how do you know? I said, hang on, Mr. India was the biggest rom-com in India ever.
I know, right? Hi, Mr. Shekhar Kapur. It's so nice to meet you. Virtually, albeit, but it's nice to meet you.
Great to see you.
How's it going? The movie has finally released in India. Have people been in touch? Have you heard back from the motherland?
I think today it's released. Let's see. I'm getting a lot of good. I think that the reviews are good, but I haven't seen them yet. I'd see tomorrow. I'll see them all.
Now, there's been a considerable delay in the movie releasing in India as opposed to it being available for the rest of the world to watch. Why is that?
The movie has been staggered, the release. Actually, the first release was Australia,
Oh.
and then the UK. Yeah, and then the UK, and then France, and it's still not released in the US. It'll come in the US. So it came to India before it came to the US. So we can at least say that.
Came to India before it came to the US. But listen, speaking of US, right now India is doing very well in this country, in the United States of America. We've just had 3 big nominations, 2 big awards. But Shekhar, you've walked that red carpet before, and you've walked it multiple times before. Did it bring back any memories watching this unfold this time?
Well, I've been waiting a long time for this to happen. I walked it with Elizabeth and the second Elizabeth. I thought at that time that I'm like, open the doors.
Yeah.
But it took a long time for, let's say, Rajamouli or people like that to suddenly come up and say, all right, we can do it. And they did it. And they did it strong. They didn't just do it, they did it strong. And the interesting thing about what RRR has done, it's not compromised anything. It says, I'm making my film my way, the way I make films. And you watch my film. And, he got the Best Director's Award at the New York Film Critics. It was amazing.
That's true for all the 3 films that were nominated. All the directors of the 3 films said, we're going to make our film our way, whether it is RRR or even All That Breeds and The Elephant Whisperers. It's been made in a...
Yeah. They did not compromise, hey, let's make a film that the Academy will like or the West will like. They didn't do that. That's what's amazing. That's what's wonderful about it.
And then we have a massive big budget production, and we have an independent film as well that have both won, like the smallest production crew that's made The Elephant Whisperers.
I know. That's what a beautiful film they made.
It's incredible.
With such a small crew. Yes. And a big hug to all of them.
In 2020, Shekhar, you had said that at an expo in Dubai, if you remember, that if we try to tell stories, the Indian film fraternity will fail because we are arrogant to call ourselves storytellers. We are only provoking. We're not telling stories. Do you still stand by that statement, even like considering the world has completely changed since 2020?
No, the context is there. If I just tell my story, and if my story doesn't provoke a story in the audience's head as their story, then everybody will just get bored. You know what I mean? It's an arrogant statement to say, look, I am successful because I'm a storyteller. No, I am successful only if the story that I tell reaches out to people. And in my story, the audiences see their story. If that doesn't happen, then the film doesn't travel.
Is that what you're hoping will happen with What's Love Got to Do with It? People will see a part of their story in this movie?
I think it's already happening because the film has released worldwide. It's doing really well. And what I'm noticing is that, in my first trial, showing to cast and crew, 3 people in my cast and crew, Scottish and Welsh and British, and they came up and said, my God, my grandma is just like that. Nani Jan, who plays Nani Jan. And then I remembered there was my big fat Greek wedding had a grandmother. Crazy Rich Asians had a grandmother.
Yep.
See, what's really interesting is that although this is about immigrants, people from Pakistan settled in the UK, people from all over the world are completely identifying with the theme. Who is not looking for love, right? Who is not be obsessed by how do we find love? How do we find intimacy? How do we find relationships? And who doesn't have a family?
Yeah.
And the who doesn't see these family politics? It's the same family politics that you get in a Jewish family in New York, or a Chinese family in Beijing, or a Japanese family, certainly in all the Latin families, certainly in the Mexican families, the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes, the story is touching the nerve a very universal nerve. Thank God.
You
Right.
know what I really loved about the narrative was that it doesn't paint one side as the villain and the other side as a martyr, and someone's falling on a sword to protect somebody else. Everyone is real and raw and flawed humans. I loved Shabana's performance, and I'll come back to collaborating with Shabana once again. But talk to me about first creating the story with Jemima. Did she come to you with a complete story, screenplay, script?
Oh yeah, I was presented with a screenplay, then we worked on it. But a film exists on on a screenplay level, and then it takes another form when it goes to the actors and the director, because the actors have to own it.
Yeah.
That's what's different about What's Love Got to Do With. Nobody's playing it, they're all owning the characters. So most of this, I mean, almost all the performances actually are very real.
Uh-huh.
If this was a drama, they would be as real as this, except it's a comedy, but they're not playing at it. They're
Uh-huh.
being real. And that's something that I guess if you see in all my films, that's something that keeps going through my films. The emotion is real,
Yeah.
because I don't know how else to make a film except having the emotion as real.
Now I'm turning 35 in a few months, and I'm at that point in my life where I have a little bit of legitimate nostalgia towards my teenage years, and I'm reaching a point where it's become easier for me to understand my parents' point of view, why my rules were so much stricter than other parents and other children. And I've reached a point where I've forgiven my parents, and we're all living in a really that kind of peace that you find a way through the things that you disagree. You find a way, and you come to a point of sometimes comfortable, sometimes uncomfortable, but it's peaceful now. Do you derive some of that from your own life, your own experiences? Because it's very evident in the film that Kazim, despite not agreeing with his mother, and especially you see it in the matchmaking scene, is respectful of her right up till the end.
Yeah, so there's a point of view. My question to him and my question in my mind was, is he respectful to her, or is he scared to make a decision? I was in London when I was 18 and 19, and I came from a very big family in India. I had 42 first cousins.
Yes, yes.
So some of my friends at that time from India, we were all students studying. They fell in love with English girls, and they lived with them. And then they went back to India and married an Indian girl. I said, "What happened? Why
Oh
did
my
you do
gosh.
this?" Yeah. And I sensed that there's also a fear that happens where you're like, oh my God, am I going to survive it? You
Mm.
know, one of the reasons I really wanted to do this film was also because of Zoe's character, Lily James,
Yes.
and because this idea that you could find love and intimacy or adventure through casual sex, frequent casual sex.
Sure.
So the dating apps, Tinder, and all of those dating apps. And I kept wondering so when I talked to Lily, I talked about that. I said, how do we find it? And she said, how do you see my character? I said, I see your character as if it's in a tumble dryer. It's just going to like that. And you're not able to make up, that is a large part of what's happening to the young generation now.
Yeah.
The tumble dryer, and that's because there's so much choice. So a lot of the thing is, too much choice a good thing? Or is too much, or when is enough choice becomes too much choice,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so at one stage in arranged marriage, there's no choice. On the other side, there's so much choice that it's like, now what do I do? There's so much choice. It's
Yeah.
like going to a supermarket where you can choose a partner. Like, oh wow, which
It's
partner?
literally it's literally like shopping for a boyfriend on Tinder and all these dating apps.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's daunting. I'm very happily
So,
married, and I'm so happy that I'm not in the dating market anymore because it's brutal out there.
yeah, but the thing is, the film does not make any judgments. We're not saying that
Yeah.
that's wrong. We're not saying, I'm saying here's a character who does that. And nobody judges her for that. They talk about it. If anybody has to judge it, she has to judge herself,
Yeah.
not anybody else. And nobody's judging this idea of arranged marriage as if that's a good thing or it's a bad thing. And the most wonderful thing that I found about the script was that at the end, you know how rom-coms are? I didn't want to make a rom-com. They said, but Shekhar, you've never made a rom-com. So how do you know? I said, hang on, Mr. India was the biggest rom-com in India ever.
I know, right?
And so it's rom-com is a genre. I didn't want to be defined by a genre. I just wanted to make a movie, right? So I was told, my God, nobody's going to, Shekhar, when you pitch it to buyers and everything, just keep saying rom-com, rom-com, rom-com. I kept saying rom-com, knowing in my heart there was a very emotional story.
Yes.
Within, you could call it a rom-com if you want,
Yeah.
And
yeah, that
yeah,
scene, the scene with the sister and the Nani Jan reuniting, it's all kind, like I was fully choked up.
Every time I see my own film, I get choked up at that point. Is when Nani Jan looks at the screen and starts to wipe her tears, and I say, oh, my heart goes out to her.
Because Nani Jan's wall just suddenly just crashes. In one split second, her wall comes down, and that moment really hits you like a sucker punch. Please talk to me about making Emma Thompson dance. It was hilarious and equal parts heartwarming to watch her dance at a Pakistani wedding celebration. Please talk to me about getting her to do that.
Well, she was game. I actually want, I would have, one day I'll make a director's cut and you'll see how she and Sajal dance together.
I would pay money to watch that.
Yeah. One day I'll come up with a director's cut, right? And you'll see so much more about Emma Thompson and Sajal dancing away and going crazy. No, she was game. She actually went and rehearsed it. It was fantastic.
Was she fun to get to do all these weird things with her? Because she's making fun of herself throughout the film. And it's through her character that you're also exploring the ignorance and sometimes unintentional cruelty of the Western world that a lot of us immigrants live within.
Yeah. And she's caught on to that pitch immediately. She said to me, how do we do it? I'm going to just make fun of myself. And I said, that's a perfect way to do it. Perfect. And then she pitched it just right. So everything that she says that actually would sound so, my God, you can't say that these days, but she would just say it and you forgive her for it. But, there's so many people like that. Yeah. They talk about other cultures, right?
Now let's come back to Shabana ji, who is just absolutely fantastic in everything she touches. Everything she touches turns to gold. She's just fabulous. What was it like reuniting with her after so many years?
Like Masoom was just yesterday. Yeah, it was quite amazing. We just sort of flowed into it and she understood everything that I was saying. And, the amazing thing about Shabana is if you take two scenes, when Zoe comes out and Shabana's seen the screening, remember that? And she just like, you knew exactly what was going on in her head or the actor's or the character's head by just a look. She just stood there and looked at her. And there was such a slight movement of her head that explained everything. Then, when she sees the baby, remember, and looks at her own
slowly
daughter,
she walks towards her daughter.
Yeah, she walks. It's just still and look. So Shabana has this ability to convey so much in being still. So amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's incredible. I wish she was my mother.
Don't say that to her.
Lily James is amazing. Shazad Latif is amazing. But Sajal Ali has my heart. What a character. She comes in, she's so sneaky. You know that it's not quite what meets the eye. And then she kind of causes the eventual conflict to resolve in the film. Sajal Ali as Memuna. Please talk to me about creating that character and working with Sajal.
First, it's a character that's slightly underwritten, but she took that up as a challenge. And the character doesn't explain itself. But what she managed to do is, you remember that scene where she's being interviewed, said, so, what about love? And she just looks at him and you knew that in that look, there was like, what's my life going to be? And so she just shifted.
Yeah.
And that shift was so, and such a quick shift. But then when you look back at what she was doing earlier, you say, yeah, I noticed that. Oh, yeah, there she did this and there she did this. And she brought a certain, even in those scenes where she's supposed to be completely submissive, you saw a little bit of a rebellion. And how she did that was pretty amazing. Yeah, she stole a lot of people's hearts. She's
very good. And in the writing, this reflects. And Jemima Khan knew Lady Diana. And then there's that dialogue where Prince Charles dialogue when Shazad's character says whatever in love means, and she gives him the look. And then we also see the moment where she breaks away and starts dancing and completely transforms into a different person. I'm telling you, if there's going to be an offshoot or a spin-off, it's got to be Memuna's character because there's so much left there to explore.
And that dance was not choreographed.
She's just like riffing, doing whatever's
She
coming to
just
her mind.
took off and she expressed all the frustrations of the characters and all the eccentricities of that character in the dance.
Yeah.
And even Emma, although the earlier bit was a bit rehearsed and choreographed, when Emma started to dance with Mamuna, it was not choreographed. Those two just took off. Yeah.
Two women throwing caution to the winds. Lastly, Shekhar, I hope that we don't have to wait another 16 years. What are you working on now? When are we seeing you next?
Well, I've got to stop going into because I do musical theater also.
Yes.
And I've done a lot of series. I've done one in the US. I've done a huge series in the UK. But I should get onto my next film very fast. I promise you, it won't be that long.
Because, like I was saying before we started recording, no Shekhar Kapur film is like a previous Shekhar Kapur film, and it's not going to be like the next Shekhar Kapur film. So please keep giving us these new things and new avatars of yours.
I can't do it because otherwise you keep repeating yourself. Where do I find, when I was filming, everybody says make a Mr. India too. When I was filming Mr. India, I had a 12-year-old boy sitting next to me all the time, talking to me, and that was a mini me, right? And I would shoot a shot and I would say, so what do you think? He'd say, it's very boring. So I've been listening to a little 12-year-old sitting in my head. So every film has to be completely new and exciting and exploratory and adventurous. So that's why I do it. I just shift genres all the time. Otherwise, we fall into the same trap. We all do the same thing. And what's the point? The point is, if art and if cinema is a way to explore yourself, then you have to keep exploring yourself in different ways.
Well, I hope that exploration goes on and you keep giving us new flavors with every new feature that you do. And I'm hoping there's going to be more features. And we'll see you
Pray
soon.
for it. I'm praying for it.
Thank you for
Okay.
your time, Shekhar. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.